Hey, welcome back to Papa's Custom Cars. Had a little bit of a note in the comment section about this particular welder, and that I really didn't explain it well enough, and I want to first apologize for that. I understand, but to be honest with you, I had to watch videos to even learn how to set it up and get it working. Now that I've got it there, I can probably give you a little bit more in depth on this welder. So let's get to that. So this is a gas MIG made by Azzuno. I've had it for about a year now. Just started using it for the first time. And I can tell you, because I had a buzz box, you know, the one, it's not the solid core wire, it's the flux core wire. So I've never had a gas welder, and I can tell you, boy, the difference when I went from that welder and started welding up a few holes in the firewall of the Nova, what a difference it makes. I can't really walk you through how to use this welder. I can just tell you that it appears to be a really good quality welder. I haven't had any issues with it overheating, but I do car body work on it, so it's not that difficult. Like, for example, right now it's loaded with 023 wire, I believe. Here on the side I've got a 10-pound roll, which is nice. You don't ever have to change it very often. Comes with all kinds of dies, so you can put the different sized wires in there. You know, we got what, 0.8 and 0.6. So there's 4 different dies in there for your wire feed, so you can go to different sizes. I've got the 023 because I do a lot of body work. I believe it's 023. It's either 023 or 026, one of those two. But it's the really better for body work because you're dealing with such thin metal that it's just better to use it. At least that's what I've read in the beginning, and that is what I ran into when I was using it. I have learned that I do need to increase my wire speed a little bit and lower the temperature just a little bit. And it's relatively easy to use. Flip it on for you real quick. Fires up real quick. There are different ways that you set up your cables depending upon if you're using gas or no gas. It'll do it both ways, and it'll do, I believe, a little bit of TIG, but I've got a TIG welder for that, so I don't need to use this for TIG. One of the nice things about it is you've got all of your settings here. You've got a manual setting, and then, you know, like for your gas, you've got 3 settings: CO2, a mix, and then the flux if you're using flux core wire. I will never go back to flux core wire. I will always stay with gas. It is unbelievable the difference if you have never used it. So I run the mix. It's a 75-25 mix, mainly because that's what everybody else uses in the world. So that's what I'm using. It has different settings depending upon the type of metal you're welding. So you can set it up automatically, and it'll automatically set your settings based on what you're doing. I am, like, it's 1, 0.8, and 0.6, so I run it at the lowest, which is 0.6. I could probably go down a little bit lower than that just because I'm not welding real thick metal. It's learning to use one of these is kind of a long-term process. If you think you're going to learn how to use it and just be good at it right away, you're lucky. With me, I've had to learn how to use everything in it, or use everything on it, and I'm kind of using a lot of the automatic settings because it's just easier for me to do. But you can set everything manually, and as you can see, as you change one, it's changing the other. So you can change your voltage. But like I say, if you're going with automatic, you can automatically set everything, and it'll put your settings in for you. There's a lot of features on this welder that I don't understand yet, and so I'm not going to sit here and tell you, oh yeah, if you do this, you do that, you do this, it'll work for you. I can just tell you what I've done based on what I'm doing. I have 220 outlets in the garage, but have found with this welder, I can run it at 120 on a 20 amp circuit, and it does just fine. When you're welding the thinner metal, it doesn't really require that high of a voltage, so it works out better for you. You've got MIG 2T for your settings for pedal or what have you. You've got MIG 2T, MIG 4T, MMA, and then the TIG lift. Right now I've just got it on 2T. You can search around and find all the answers to what those are. It has to do with once you start welding, the welder just keeps going until you hit the button again. So it's like one pull to start it, one pull to stop it kind of thing. And I believe that's 4T. If not, I might be wrong, but do your own research on it and find out. Setting up the welder is pretty easy. You've got your main line with your head, and the other one's going to be dependent upon whether you're using gas or no gas. So I'm using gas, so you plug it into this side, the positive side, and if it's using no gas, then you go to the negative side. So, you know, I want to be able to tell you guys that this is a really good welder. Everybody that's out there that has one of these, that has demoed it, that does weld for a living, says these are really good, and they've had a hard time overheating them, which is something you run into when you're doing heavy steels and that type of thing. With auto body, you're not really going to run into it. This is a good tool for your body work. As you're going to see, I'm going to go through and I'm going to fill all the screw holes that I made on this particular panel on the firewall of the Nova. That way you guys can see kind of how it works, aside from the two little tiny holes that I already filled. So let's get this thing all set up and ready to go, and let's get to welding. Oh, this is another one of the things that it comes with. You've got your 110 to 220 hookup, and there's multiple. I think you've got the regular plug, and then I've got this adapter also, a dryer adapter, because I used to run off of a dryer cord. But yeah, like I said, I haven't needed to use it with. I have not needed to use it with what I'm doing. 110 seems to be working just great, so I'm going to continue to use 110. When I get something a little thicker, we'll definitely be going to 220. But right now, for what I'm doing, the 120 works just fine. One of the things I suggest is buy good tools. I got myself a pair of cutters. So after I run that line out, I like to get a nice clean line going. I also set my gas based on what everybody, or I should say YouTube University says. Let's weld up a couple areas, shall we? Okay, now, aside from welding up all the holes from the sheet metal screws that I used, I also have to weld the bottom down there because this is still relatively loose, so I'm just going to tack it in, and that way I know it's going to stay in place. So, getting so much glare I can't see when I'm welding. Okay, see, it being a light sheet metal, all you can do is really just tack, and then just, you know, as you go, and you kind of come back and fill all the grooves and that type of thing. So you don't want to like run a bead. You'll end up burning this whole piece of sheet metal up. So that's why I'm doing a lot of bouncing around and tacking in different places. And like I said, I've got the heat set relatively low and my feed about in the middle. I could probably run it a little faster, but I don't have to. Like I say, I am new at this, so practice makes perfect. So here we go. So as you can see, we're just kind of tacking along. Now over here, this end is going to be a little bit more difficult because it's flexing out because of the curve in the panel. So the reason I'm attacking it from this direction over is to
get that panel to lay a little flatter so that when I get over here, I'm up against the panel like I should be. This side has to have a bend put in it, so yeah, no rush on that one either. So that's kind of how this is all going to go. Just wanted to throw a quick short video out there to the person who commented about, you know, the ins and outs of this machine. But as you can see, it works real well. I have to give it good credit, because usually on that other one I'd have blown 5 or 6 holes in this thing already. So definitely the way to go. It is a low-cost welder, and it seems to do everything that I need it to do. And there is a guy out there I know that tests these for YouTube. So I don't get paid to rate the welders. I just try to tell you what I think based on what I've experienced. Like I say, this particular welder, he was upset because he thought it was going to be a breakdown of the entire welder. And all I can tell you is, I can't tell you that until after I actually use it practical. I know I've run a couple of beads with it just for practice, and it is really, really nice. Just when you're using it for automotive sheet metal, it requires a little bit different finesse than, say, if you're welding, you know, quarter or eighth inch steel. You're going to get a different result, and it's a little bit different to use. But for sheet metal, you're just spot welding more than anything, and then coming back and cleaning it up. So to give you a real good rating on it, I mean, for the money, it's a good welder. If you're going to be using it commercially, I probably wouldn't recommend it. If you're doing welding jobs here and there, and you're not going to be running it all day long for a week straight, you're probably okay with this welder. It's working for what I need it for, and it's working real well. Like I said, I went from a buzz box, flux core wire, and a $100 welding machine, and that was what it cost years ago. But moving from that to this is a complete game changer for me anyway. I've never used one of these before, and people used to make fun of me when I used the old buzz box, they called it. But you know what? It worked for what I needed it to do, and it worked well for what I needed it to do. I didn't know any better, so you know, my suggestion is, if you're not a welder at all and you're just learning, this is a good machine to learn with. It's not real expensive, but it still has a lot of features that, if you go to my page, my Papa's Custom Cars page, click on the Amazon links, and then all you got to do is scroll down. You'll find this welder. Click on it and read everything that it's got. So far, everything they say it can do, it does. That's probably pretty much the most rating I can give you for it. I have run it in 220, and I have run it in 110. And I can tell you that when I was running it on 220 on sheet metal, I burned it. I burned holes in it. I didn't need that much power. One of the nice things about running the 120, and I don't know if it's just me or if it's just something I'm experiencing, you're a welder and you know different, you know, let us know. We don't have a clue. But when I run it on 110, I don't pop any holes in anything. It seems to be real smooth, real efficient. I don't get any issues that a lot of people say that they get with their welders. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and go back to welding. I'll fast forward you guys through most of it. I'm going to be bouncing around a lot on the sheet metal. I'm kind of playing and learning right now, so there's no real rhyme or reason to the way I'm doing my welding over here. And then when it's done, I'm going to grind it off so I can see how well I did. They say that the mark of a good welder is if you can grind away what doesn't look like a good weld, you're doing far better than most. So I'm going to get back to welding this panel and see what we can do here. So what I'm doing right now is I'm going through in all the holes that I drilled for the sheet metal screws, put that panel bond in here. I'm using those as basically like spot welds, and it is working quite well. There's no more. It's not bowed out. I am running into. There's a little bit of a curve in this area here, both in the panel and in the body. So I'm going to have to figure out how to tack this area up. As you can see, I had to run a bunch of different screws into it to hold this area of the panel. So, like I say, I'm just using these as spot weld holes.
because the other panel is right behind it, every one of these holes, so it makes it really nice, and it's holding it real well. Like all the excellence came out of this whole area here along this. So I need to just tack down over here, and that should be good for the bottom end. And then I'll do the same along the top. First I'll hit these all the little screw holes, get them to shut up or to shut, and then we'll be good to go. So moving across it a little bit at a time. I'm having some trouble up in this area because that panel is too far away from the other one behind it. So I'm getting issues with it wanting to lay down flat. This whole area is out just a tiny bit, so I'm going to have to hammer that a little while and then come back to it. And with that said, I think that's pretty much all I'm going to do today. I wanted to see how well it was going to react, and I wanted to get this video out to you guys before I take off. So as you can see by my spot welds, I'm getting better at it, but like I say, it takes practice. I completely missed that one, but I did get this one. These two here were what was causing this panel to have a little bit of flex in it, and now that those little spot welds are done, there's no more flex. Now remember, this can be easily cleaned up with a grinder, and then it's going to be seam sealed along the edges anyway, but this area up here is sticking way out. That panel behind it is kind of out farther than this particular one, so I'm going to have to hammer this all down or just grind the edge of this off to get it to lay flat to the steel behind it. But there's, it's a very wavy panel. Most of these firewall panels aren't perfect, but that kind of gives you an idea how I'm doing everything. And in the next one, we'll go ahead and finish all of this up, and then we'll get it all ground down so that you can see how it worked out. But yeah, for those out there looking for a welder, this thing's working really good. It really, really is. Like I say, the holes burned and stuff, you know what? That's me. That's not the welder. Like I say, it's one of those, takes a lot of practice thing. And what happens is I get a little bit enthusiastic because the first couple of them go real well, and I start getting a little ahead of myself. And you got to remember with welding, or as with anything else, slow down, take your time. There's no hurry to get anything done. So with that, I'll talk to you guys. We are going to be going to SEMA. Put in for my pass and got it. So we're going to be putting out some videos here in the next few weeks coming up that are going to entail SEMA, the cars at SEMA, and all that kind of fun stuff. So that's going to be kind of neat. So I look forward to that. This will be the first time in, years, a lot of years, probably 15 years that I've been to a SEMA show. And so it's going to be really, really neat. So with that, everybody like, share, subscribe. If you have any questions on the welder, you can throw them to me. But if you look on the Azzuno welder, there are a lot of videos out there on it. I can tell you for what I'm using it for, it's really nice. And that kind of does it. So with that, like, share, subscribe. See you in the next one.